is a young guy who was recently kicked out of his old school for starting a big fight. So, he's sent to an academy where girls have been violently oppressing boys since it became co-ed. However, Nomura challenges 5 girls to prove they're not as violent as they seem. The anime starts in an academy where a girl, Rei, meets up with her friends, who grab their swords. Meanwhile, a boy walks into the academy, happy he can finally study in peace. Rei stands in the middle, introduces herself, and is joined by her friend Mary, who was waiting for her. Rei explains to everyone that she gathered them as part of the 5 Supreme Swords to discuss the new boy, Nomura, who was transferred for causing a revolt at his old school where 40 students got hurt. Wamari's pet bear interrupts, and Rei scolds it, revealing the boy's name is Nomura. Elsewhere, Nomura meets Masukodera, a boy who dresses like a girl. He says all boys do this at the academy to avoid trouble. Nomura is puzzled but insists he won't do it, though Masukodera advises him not to cause any commotion. The girls ask Rukuru why she's there. She says she's curious about Nomura and has already fought him. Rei tells her she won't need to fight him again as he's in her class and she'll correct him. Rukuru leaves, warning Rei about Nomura's spirit bullet. Later, Rei gathers a group of girls to confront Nomura, who enters the room. Rei pins him against the wall with the others, asking them not to hurt him. She says she'll correct his behavior as part of the 5 Supreme Swords. One girl explains the academy became co-ed and boys started bothering them, so they formed the group, allowing them to carry swords. They also accept rebellious boys from other schools for correction. Nomura understands the situation. Masukodera watches, explaining why boys dress like girls. Rei gives Nomura 2 options, dress like a girl or leave the academy. He refuses to leave, insisting on living freely as a boy. He then moves quickly, peeks under a girl's skirt, escapes through a window, and announces her underwear is purple. Rei chases him, saying boys need permission from the 5 Supreme Swords to leave the academy. She tries to slash him with her sword, but he dodges. Impressed by his agility, Rei prepares a stronger attack. Nomura avoids her strikes while Wamari watches. Rei continues with different techniques, cutting Nomura's shirt. He tries to knock her down, but she adopts a crane stance. She attacks him with her sword, cutting his cheek. Nomura puts on special anti-sword gloves, and Wamari realizes what they are. The other girls worry as the school bell is about to ring, hoping Rei wins to avoid ridicule from Rukuru. Nomura trips and falls against a tree. Rei beats him repeatedly until he touches her side, concentrates air from his body, and knocks her to the ground, winning the fight. He tells her his technique is Spirit Bullet. Nano appears and hits Nomura on the head, causing him to kiss Rei. Rei gets up, vowing castration. Later, Nano bathes when Mary, another Supreme Sword, tells her not to worry about Rei as she'll avenge Nomura. Another student, Chauka, appears, claiming she'll handle it. Mary undresses and tells her to stop talking and bathe. That night, Masukodera is surprised Nomura only hurt his foot in the fight. Nomura says he can't use his feet for a while but will fight the girls with his hand training. He asks how to get permission to leave the academy. Masukodera explains he needs to speak with Rin and get a stamp from the 5 Supreme Swords. Nomura asks Masukodera for a box of pastries. The next day, Nomura brings the pastries to class to make peace with the girls, but they suspect a trap. He asks about Rei and her underwear. UI informs him Rei is sick and her underwear is white. Nomura inquires about the girls' dorms, which are west of the academy. Rei recalls walking with her sister in a mask, wakes up with a cold, gets angry at Nomura, but also realizes he was her first kiss. She puts on her mask and takes her sword, hearing Nomura approach. He arrives with pastries, saying she looks cute in the mask. Rei admits she's too embarrassed to remove it. Nomura asks for permission to leave the academy. Rei grants it, along with her sword stamp. He asks to thank her with a kiss, causing her to faint. Nano enters and chases him. Chauka sees this and stops him, introducing herself as the leader of the Junior 5 Swords. Nano arrives, claiming she's the leader and vows to defeat Nomura. They attack him together. Nano hits him, and he realizes her style resembles Rei's. Chauka explains they'll correct him together, noting only Rukuru has defeated 2 people at once. Nomura is surprised Rukuru is above the 5 Supreme Swords. Chauka reveals Rukuru is a lifelong rebel and exchange student. The girls surround Nomura. He stops Nano and makes Chauka accidentally catch her with her whip. He uses his technique to throw Nano at Chauka. Both cry, fearing he'll kiss them like Rei. Later, Rei gives Nomura his academy exit permission. Mary is angry at Nomura for touching Chauka and vows revenge. The next day, Rei tells Nomura she'll supervise him. Chauka informs Mary about her fight with Nomura. Rei assures Nano that Nomura won't victimize anyone else under her watch. Meanwhile, Mary claims Nomura as her prey. Masukodera tells Nomura that Mary is after him for humiliating Chauka. He explains Mary and Rin once fought Rukuru, the only one to defeat them. Nomura recalls fighting someone like Rukuru. The next morning, Rei wakes Nomura for supervision. She checks his bag for dangerous items. Mary and Chauka appear, with Mary accusing Nomura of abusing Chauka and changing since kissing Rei. Rei asks Nomura to leave so she can talk to Mary alone. Rei confronts Mary while Chauka chases Nomura. She tries to whip him, but he disarms her, causing her to faint at his lack of pants. On the other hand, Rei loses the fight against Mary, who then goes to battle Nomura. Meanwhile, Nomura sees Rukuru and is reminded of a boy named Amo, who looks just like her. He asks if they have fought each other, but Rukuru denies it and tells him to stay away. However, Nomura lunges at her, but Mary interrupts him, telling him to pull up his pants after seeing his enormous titan. As a result, Nomura loses sight of Rukuru, while Mary tends to Chauka. Later, Rukuru confesses that in her old school she pretended to be that boy Amo, and tried to force Nomura to fight for her. However, he refused and tried to confront her. So, she attacked him with her hands, which act like blades, and hurt him until he was down. Ending the memory, Mary fights Nomura and manages to cut him a bit, thanks to her Western-style movements, while Nomura has a more Japanese style. Nevertheless, he tries to dodge her attacks, but Mary gains the advantage and continues hurting him by spinning her sword quickly. Meanwhile, Rei finds Chauka and asks about them, to which Chauka replies that they are behind the Spanish stairs. Back with Mary, Nomura decides and lunges at her. She moves and stabs him with her sword, but he laughs and shows that she actually stabbed his manga magazine. Then, Nomura grabs her and hits Mary on the head. Later, he uses his technique and throws her to the ground. Consequently, she asks him to kill her, preferring that over admitting her defeat. However, Nomura tells her he won't do it. So, Mary starts thinking that she can't be humiliated like this, as she did something with the other girls. Therefore, she asks him to touch her breasts, but Nomura refuses again and asks for her stamp to get permission to leave the academy. After this, Mary places her stamp between her breasts for him to take it, but Nomura states he won't do it. Later, Rei arrives and gets angry at him. Then, Mary defends him and gives him her stamp, stating that from now on she will also watch over him along with Rei. Later on, both Rei and Mary supervise Nomura while he has lunch. Meanwhile, Wamari returns to the academy, claiming she had a great time during her vacation in Hawaii. She also realizes that Mary and Rei are trying to correct Nomura. Later, Wamari meets with Satori, who is part of the Five Swords, and states that Rei and Mary need to be corrected for being friends with Nomura, to which Satori agrees. In gym class, Nomura finds Masukodera beaten and tied to a post. After this, he tries to help him, but Rin and Mary stop him, saying they have a bad feeling. Right here, Wamari appears and invites Nomura to participate in her death festival, which she uses to correct rebellious students. She tells him that if he does it, she'll give him her stamp for the permission. However, the girls get upset, and Wamari confesses that the Council of the Five Swords made the decision. Then, 3 students appear behind them, stating they will be his opponents in the festival games. After this, Wamari scolds Rei and Mary for treating Nomura so kindly. Later, she creates a ring for the first game. Then, Rei tells Nomura to focus as Wamari's games are not easy. She also tells him that a long time ago, Wamari corrected a boy by putting a torch on his back and pouring gasoline on him, until unfortunately half the building ended up in flames. With that said, Wamari gives them a piece of cloth to use like sumo wrestlers. However, Chauka and Nano arrive and attack Wamari's servants to stop the festival. But the 2 girls beat them, so Rei and Mary intervene and state they can't do anything as it's a council decision. After this, Nomura appears in his sumo loincloth, so Rei asks for help putting hers on. Therefore, he helps her while Rei feels embarrassed. Then, Nomura does the same with Mary. Later, she complains, stating that he took longer with Rei than with her. Later, the film group records the festival and broadcasts it on all the academy's screens. Consequently, Nomura gets in the ring and challenges one of Wamari's girls. However, one of them named Tauko tells him his opponent is already in the ring. Then, Nomura realizes that Wamari's bear will fight him. Nevertheless, Rei and Mary get angry, stating that it's not a fair fight. But Wamari explains that if they defeat her bear, they will earn 3 points. So, Nomura agrees. Then, Wamari throws a bottle on the ground to start the fight. Afterward, Nomura lunges at the bear and uses his magic bullet technique. However, the bear resists and tries to attack him. Then, he dodges it and repeats his punch using his left hand, which surprises Rei. but the bear keeps attacking him, so Nomura gets behind it and lifts it up, stating that since he was little he fought against the biggest to gain strength in his legs. Then, he tries to get it out of the ring while telling Wamori that he hates that she hurt Masukodera and humiliated the girls. Right then, Nomura stops and steps away from the bear, causing it to end up naked. As a result, Nomura wins the fight, and he returns with the girls, while Wamori faints and then tells her servants to activate the pepper alert. On the other hand, Nomura watches Masukodera, who is still tied up. Later, Wamori announces that the festival is over, but tells Nomura that if he wants her stamp, he'll have to face her servants to reach her. Therefore, he accepts. However, Ray and Mary tell him it's not necessary to do it, to which he explains that it's the only way to save Masukodera. After this, both decide to accompany him, so they enter the dressing room to change clothes. Then, Nomura enters without warning, which annoys them, and they start throwing things at him. Later, Chauka and Nano approach him and ask for a favor. Later on, these two enter the academy where they start fighting against Wamori's servants while Nomura tells Ray and Mary what is happening. Then, they get upset knowing that their friends are fighting for them. However, Nomura explains that it's only a distraction so they can reach Wamori. Right then, Satori appears through another door and approaches them, saying Wamori is out of control, and that's why she will help them reach her, as the council only allowed the festival. On the other hand, Wamori realizes that some girls in masks are rescuing Masukodera. Then, Nomura arrives with the girls to confront her. Therefore, Wamori summons her bear to fight for her. After this, Mary realizes that Tauko and her companions are approaching them, so she decides to go face them. Later, Nomura lunges at the bear, but it hits him like a professional boxer. Continuing with the fight, Ray decides to attack Wamori, who dodges her attack and cuts her shoulder with her sword. Seeing this, Ray realizes that Wamori's movements are impressive. However, like her friends, she continues attacking Wamori, who dodges her blows and causes her more harm. Later, she tries to cut her leg, but Ray takes her crane pose and kicks her, stating that she also has amazing techniques. On the other hand, Mary defeats Tanukahara and pins her against the wall. Back with Nomura, he hits the bear with his magic bullet punch. However, he gets cornered in a corner. On the other hand, Mary gets distracted and ends up being attacked by Saruwatari, who throws metal pieces at her. Seeing such a situation, Wamori tries to distract Ray, so she begins to doubt. Therefore, Nomura reassures her and thanks her for supporting him. As a result, Mary lunges at the girls and defeats them. Also, Nomura manages to hit the bear and finishes it. Finally, Ray takes her sword and attacks Wamori, who tries to do the same, but backs off when she sees that Ray doesn't stop. As a result, she ends up losing. Then, Chauka and Nano arrive, who are happy to see that Ray defeated Wamori. Then, Nomura asks for help dressing Wamori as a sumo wrestler for losing, to which they get angry and start chasing him. The next day, Ray checks her new mask, but remembers that for Nomura she looks cute without it, so she decides to keep using the piece that remains, to which Nano tells her that she looks very good. On the other hand, Mary puts on perfume before going to the academy and asks Chauka how she looks. So, she praises her and tells her she is the most beautiful. Later, both get jealous when they see that the other girls welcome Nomura as if he were a hero for having fought the bear. Then, in the classroom, Nomura begins to yawn. So, Ray kicks him, telling him to pay attention to class. Then, Mary moves the girls away who start looking at Nomura. However, after class, all the girls start following him from afar, which annoys Ray and Mary, who decide to accompany Nomura for lunch. At this, Nomura tells them that lunch was his only moment of freedom, to which they explain that if they weren't with him, the other girls would jump on him. After this, both say goodbye and remind him that they will come to look for him the next day. After this, Wamori comes out of her hiding place and confesses that by observing Nomura, she has realized that he is not a delinquent as she thought. Later, Ray and Mary talk, thinking about what they will do with Nomura, as they affirm that they need to correct him before the situation gets worse. On the other hand, Nomura sits down to have dinner with Masukodera while someone watches him. Later that night, both go to bed, but then someone enters the room. The next day, Nomura waits for Ray and Mary, ready to go to class. Then, he approaches Ray and mentions that her uniform is very pretty. In addition, he smells Mary and tells her that her perfume from the day before smelled better, which causes both to blush. Subsequently, Ray inspects him and finds in one of his pockets a photograph, in which Satori appears on him in bed. Therefore, Mary gets angry. However, Nomura claims that he doesn't remember anything about it. Consequently, he runs away from the girls until he stumbles upon the bear and Wamori, who hide him so that the girls don't find him. Then, Nomura explains to Wamori what's happening, and she tells him Satori is trying to ruin his relationship with Rei and Mary. Nomura realizes that his private parts are not in the photo, so he plans to enter the girls' dormitory to look for clues. However, Wamori warns him that because of him, the girls' dormitory is now more secure than before. Later, Rei and Mary punish Nomura in the torture room for trying to enter the girls' dormitory. Since he doesn't answer their questions, they leave him in the dungeon. Wamori then approaches to help him. We flash back to when Nomura tells her to get caught by the girls so he can enter the dormitory, and Wamori agrees to help, saying Satori can't behave like this. Back in the present, Wamori and her bear accompany Nomura to Satori's room. They search but find nothing. Wamori suggests one of her masked servants might know something. They leave the room and head to the bathrooms. There, Nomura triggers a trap, dodging some darts. Then, some girls approach, so the bear hides him against the wall. Nomura panics, causing the bear to fall, and Wamori hides him by putting her butt in his face. In the bathrooms, Wamori checks Satori's underwear but finds nothing. She realizes her sword is missing. One of the masked girls attacks, throwing a dart at Nomura, but Wamori protects him and prepares to fight. Suddenly, Satori appears, naked. Satori tells Nomura that Masukodera helped her enter his room. She says she undressed and drugged him with a sleeping pill kiss. She shows him the photo data is around her neck. Meanwhile, Mary complains about Nomura to Chauka, calling him an idiot. However, she remembers he never touched or abused her. Rei also complains about Nomura and asks Nano what she thinks of him. Nano replies that since he kissed her, she thinks he's horrible, which makes Rei blush and decide to go to sleep. Back with Satori, Wamori tells Nomura to fight her. Satori invites him to the bathroom to fight there, and he asks her to put on clothes, but she refuses, saying it's part of her strategy. Nomura tries to calm his titan. Wamori battles the masked girl, realizing the dart's drug is affecting her, so she injects another drug to keep fighting. Satori attacks Nomura quickly and throws him out the window. She tries to cut him with her sword, but he dodges. She changes tactics, trying to cut his foot, but he lifts it, realizing he's in trouble since Satori uses varied techniques. Wamori fights the masked girl, who hits her hand with a dart gun. Wamori realizes the gun's mouthpiece is also poisoned, so she cuts her hand to release the poison and attacks the masked girl. Satori injures Nomura, telling him he can't predict her moves. She invites him to play a word chain game based on different attacks. She tries to cut him, but he stops her sword, realizing she won't let go. Satori keeps attacking relentlessly, and Nomura can only dodge. Meanwhile, Wamori drops her sword trying to hit the masked girl. Nomura distracts Satori by undressing, so he goes to the bathroom and removes his uniform. Satori focuses on his titan, weakly trying to hit him. Nomura takes advantage and steals her sword, as does Wamori with the masked girl, whom she throws to the ground and beats, removing her mask. Satori grabs the photo data and tells Nomura to throw it in the water, but he slaps her, sending her and the data into the pool. She asks why he's so angry. He replies it's because she made Rei cry, who believed Satori slept with him. The next day, Nomura wakes up in the infirmary with Satori, who's happy to see him awake, and Wamori asleep on another bed. He wonders how he got there. Flashback to when he offered Satori a hand out of the pool, but she hears girls approaching and pushes him into the pool to hide him. Tauko and her companions find Wamori on the ground, so they attend to her and try to remove the other girl's mask. However, she stops them, and Tauko knocks her out. Inaba arrives with her servant and asks her to check Wamori, who's been poisoned in addition to the cut on her hand. Inaba tells them to take her to the infirmary while she deals with the people in the pool. In the bathroom, Satori denies Nomura's presence. Inaba says nothing can obstruct her vision but doesn't care and wants to talk to Nomura later. Nomura emerges from the pool, but Satori says he can't fight Inaba in his condition. He insists he can't refuse her invitation. Then, he collapses. Satori realizes he's at his limit, weakened by Rei and Mary's torture. Rei wakes up thinking about Nomura and goes to talk to him. On her way, she meets Mary, who also wants to go to the punishment room to talk to Nomura. They change direction and go to the cafeteria to avoid being seen. There, they drink tea until Chauka and Nano join them. Rei and Mary hope one will leave so they can go to the punishment room, but neither gives up. Chauka and Nano try to take them to the dormitory until Satori arrives and tells them Nomura is in the infirmary, and that he attacked her in the bathroom, angering both. Back to the present, Satori finishes telling Nomura she had to fight Wamori to decide what to do with him. He remembers he needs to talk to Inaba. Meanwhile, Inaba lies in bed after waiting for Nomura. Nomura dresses, and Satori confesses she told Rei and Mary what he did in the bathroom. Rei arrives and approaches Nomura, who's scared and asks her to stop. She leans in front of him and apologizes, saying Satori told her the truth about the photo. She looks up and sees Nomura's titan, as he couldn't hold his pants from fear. They sit, and Rei says he can do what he wants with her as she deserves punishment. Nomura asks her to close her eyes and lift her head, thinking he'll kiss her. He removes her mask and asks why she wears it. Rei explains her mom always said she was ugly because of her dad, who abandoned them when she was a child. Her mom made her wear a mask around her, so she continued at the academy. She confesses to Nomura that when he said she looked pretty without it, it was the first time she felt she could live without them. Hearing this, Nomura gives back her mask, saying it's her choice to wear it or not. She asks him to keep her secret. Meanwhile, Wamori holds back from urinating to not interrupt them. Nomura tells Rei about his back scars, saying he's been an orphan his whole life, unable to even remember his parents' names. His grandfather raised him, obsessed with swords, and forced him to train despite his body not being ready, abusing him. Rei thanks him for trusting them, while Wamori decides to urinate in a bucket. Suddenly, Mary arrives and apologizes to Nomura by undressing, but he forgives her immediately and asks her to get dressed. Later, Nomura returns to his room and meets Masukodera, who's ashamed of deceiving him. Nomura says he probably did it to protect the boys' dormitory, so he still considers him a friend. Meanwhile, the girls return to their normal lives, with Rei constantly thinking about Nomura. After a few days, Nomura dreams of Rukuru, who almost killed him at his old school. Meanwhile, a servant discovers Rukuru has disappeared from her room. Two boys take a shower when suddenly a monster with a woman's head appears at the window. They tell Nomura, asking for help, but he refuses and tries to sleep. Rei arrives to find him, so he gets up. Masukodera gives him his permission slip, and the boys realize he only needs one more stamp to complete it. Masukodera says he won't get it, as he'll have to defeat Inaba. Meanwhile, Inaba informs the principal that Rukuru is missing from her dormitory. As a result, the principal announces that classes will be suspended for the day. Elsewhere, Satori goes to the rooftop to look at a photograph she has with Nomura. Back with him, Rei tells him that several things, including Wamori's teddy bear Domo, have gone missing from the girls' dormitory. Despite their search in the rooms, the girls can't find it. Wamori comments that they need to find Domo before Satori does, fearing she might think Domo is a plush toy and take it. Mary meets Nomura and Rei, asking them to help find Chauka's wig, which she hasn't left her room without. They agree to help search. Meanwhile, Nano asks Inaba if she knows anything, but she denies any knowledge. Later, Mary overhears Wamori talking with her friends and mistakenly thinks they're also searching for Chauka's wig. However, Wamori approaches them, and Nomura explains that they're looking for different things. They start arguing about what to search for first. Nomura then remembers the monster the boys saw, leading him to the men's bathroom. There, he finds two boys in the shower who start throwing things at him, but he manages to catch Domo, who is wearing Chauka's wig. Returning to the girls, Chauka comes out of her room to put on her wig, only to find it a mess. Rei then reminds them they need to hurry for classes, but Mary informs her that classes are suspended due to Rukuru's disappearance. Wamori is happy to have Domo back. Meanwhile, Satori slaps Megori, who finally appears without a mask. Suddenly, Rukuru appears and takes Satori's photograph, tearing it to pieces. Wamori realizes Rukuru is about to fight Satori, so she rides her bear to intervene. Satori asks Rukuru if she can leave, and Rukuru steps aside. As Satori walks to the door, she takes her sword to attack Rukuru, who is faster and impales her with her hand. She prepares to kill Satori, but Megori shoots a dart at her. Satori tries to stab her with her sword, but Rukuru dodges and injures Megori. Rukuru raises her hand to finish off Satori, but Megori steps in and takes the hit for her. Rukuru tastes their blood and realizes they are sisters. Megori recalls her childhood desire to match her sister Satori, who rejected her, stole her name and identity. Despite this, Megori professes her love for Satori as she bleeds out, causing Satori to cry. Wamori arrives and confronts Rukuru with her bear. They attack but are both injured. Wamori realizes her attack was futile as Rukuru remains unscathed, leading her to believe Rukuru's body is made of steel. Nomura returns to his room with Masukodera and encounters Inaba, who Masukodera says is the strongest girl at the academy. Nomura decides to ask for her stamp to complete his permission. Inaba moves quickly, placing her sword at his neck, but then sheaths it, causing Nomura to fall backward in fear. Inaba explains that the principal spoke with her and asked her to take care of him, as he had reached his limit of 2 infractions. She lists his infractions: entering Rei's dormitory, fighting Satori in the girls' bathroom, and ignoring her invitation. Nomura apologizes, saying he can't be blamed for something he didn't know. Inaba counters that she can blame him because she's stronger than him. Nomura realizes Inaba's skill is similar to his. She acknowledges their colleagues, both trained in the same fighting style, though Nomura suffered more in his training. She deduced this from his punch style, which can reach as far as a sword, and how he maintained a proper distance when fighting Rei, a sign he's used to battling swordsmen. Wamori's bear attacks Rukuru, who stops and impales it, causing it to collapse. Nomura hears a thud on the rooftop while Inaba keeps talking. Rukuru approaches Wamori, and Saruwatari hits her on the head, but Rukuru is unharmed and injures Saruwatari. Tauko and Tanukahara decide to confront Rukuru despite Wamori's protests. Inaba tells Nomura that his magic bullet punch undoubtedly proves they're colleagues. However, he's distracted by the commotion on the rooftop. Inaba says Rukuru is probably causing trouble and reveals Rukuru knows him, as she was the one who told them about his magic bullet technique. This worries Nomura, knowing Rukuru fought Rei and Mary before his arrival. Inaba becomes irritated when she realizes Nomura has left her talking to herself, and threatens Masukodora. Nomura rushes to the rooftop as Rukuru beats the girls. Wamori begs her to stop, so Rukuru blinds her, saying she shouldn't watch her friends suffer if she can't save them. The other girls realize something terrible is happening and head to the rooftop. Upon arrival, Nomura finds the girls on the ground and approaches Wamori, who asks about her friends. He says they're better off than she is. Principal Yukino then appears. Rukuru approaches Inaba and asks if she won't defend the girls. Inaba replies they aren't her friends. Rei and Mary arrive with their assistants to confront Rukuru. Yukino checks Wamori, stating she won't be able to open her eyes and needs surgery. She asks Nomura to fight Rukuru. He watches as Rei and Mary attack Rukuru, who defends herself and injures them. Rukuru confesses she has transformed her body into a weapon. Rei tells Nano and Chauka to run, but Inaba intervenes, asking Nano if she considers her a friend. Nano says yes, so Inaba tells Rukuru she won't let her friends get hurt. Inaba faces Rukuru, saying her sword causes more damage. She quickly cuts Rukuru 3 times, injuring her slightly but also wounding herself, and her sword breaks. Rukuru attacks, but Nomura intervenes, causing her to lose control. We flash back to when Nomura arrived at his old academy and defended a boy named Kirasaki, then met Rukuru, who was dressed as a boy. He tried to befriend her, but she rejected him. Kirasaki offered to show Nomura around, but Rukuru interrupted, causing her to hurt Kirasaki for walking with Nomura. Back in the present, Nomura hits Rukuru, who cuts him. He reveals he protected himself with manga magazines under his uniform. He questions if she saved him to be friends, but he says a true friend is someone you love despite initially hating them, and it takes patience to build that friendship. Nomura gets angry with Rukuru for not changing, as she still hurts her friends. Nomura realizes his only chance against her is using his magic bullet, as he can't match her bladed hands. Rei ponders how to motivate him and realizes Rukuru's chest is heavily damaged from Inaba's attack. Her steel body isn't impenetrable. Mary adds that Rukuru's body is 70% water, so there must be a moment when she relaxes her muscles, giving Nomura an opportunity. They encourage Nomura to hit Rukuru in the center. Following this, Nomura takes the stance of a swordsman, placing one foot forward, waiting for Rukuru to attack. However, she gets impatient and tells him that if he won't attack, she'll have to fight someone else. Nomura then lunges at her, but Rukuru dodges his magic bullet punch. Quickly turning around, Nomura tries to hit her again, but she evades and cuts his shirt. Nomura then tries to surprise her from behind, but she discovers him and hits him in the stomach. She lifts him by the shirt to hit him but stops when she sees he's standing again. Nevertheless, she continues her attack, covering his eyes with his jacket. Inaba advises Nomura to dodge to the left to avoid Rukuru's attack. Inaba then advises Nomura, telling him his problem is his constant doubting. She explains that Rukuru has revealed her weakness, so she communicates her plan to Nomura, who decides to follow it and attack Rukuru again. Before doing so, he thanks the girls for their support and remembers the painful days of training with his grandfather. He comments on his decision to run away in search of a normal life, which seemed impossible until he found good moments with each of the 5 swords at the academy. Hearing this, Rukuru clutches her chest, claiming she needs Nomura. She recounts how her life was always dark until she started to fill it with color herself, and then he appeared. She admits accepting his friendship because he brightened her life, but when he chose to be friends with Kirasaki instead, the darkness returned. In a flashback, Rukuru enters her room, longing for Nomura but deciding she must kill him as she can never be with him. Back in the present, Nomura unbuttons his shirt to attack Rukuru. She asks what he's planning, and he replies that he will attack her as the beast she is. Inaba reveals that Namura's fighting style relies heavily on agility. To succeed, he needs good momentum and reduced body friction, so he decided to expose his chest for Rukuru to target that spot. Namura then charges at her, and she cuts him right in the chest. However, he doesn't stop and uses his magic bullet punch against her, sending her to the ground. Rukuru remembers the first time Namura used this technique on her, feeling something different in her chest despite being hit. Rukuru stands up, surprising the girls who can't believe she withstood Namura's punch. Namura admits he wouldn't be satisfied with just one hit, so he invites her to hit him back, promising not to defend himself. They both forget about defense and start hitting each other with all their might. The principal watches them while calling a girl named Narukami, who is eagerly waiting for the fight's outcome. Inaba wonders why Namura and Rukuru seem so happy fighting. Rukuru asks Namura to keep hitting her, claiming she loves the pain and it makes her feel alive. She attacks Namura, leaving him staggering. He hits her with his magic bullet, and she responds by cutting his stomach. Namura realizes Rukuru is hiding her true power. She takes his hand, offering him another chance to finish her. She places his hand on her chest, asking him to hit her again, wanting him to kill her. He does so. Inaba then points her sword at Namura, saying they can't be friends as he disappointed her with his fight. However, she offers to be his teacher, insisting she'll give him her stamp if he accepts. Rei and the others realize it's a good deal, but he refuses again. At that moment, Satori's masked girls appear to hit Rukuru, but Yukino stops them and tells Namura he is expelled from the academy. Later, Masukodera accompanies Namura to the infirmary, relieved not to hear Rei's daily search for him. The next day, Namura visits Wamori in the infirmary. She tells him not to worry about her. He then visits Satori, who doesn't know how to express her feelings for a farewell. Namura explains that emotions express themselves. Satori makes a sour face and asks his opinion of her, expecting him to hate her. He replies no, as she only tried to cut him in a bathroom without clothes. He says goodbye and sees Megori approaching Satori to apologize. Rei and Mary plead with the principal to change her decision, arguing that Namura fought Rukuru for the academy's benefit. However, she refuses. Namura meets Inaba, who informs him that Rukuru decided to leave the academy to travel abroad. He tries to find her, but Inaba stops him, saying he needs all 5 stamps to leave, revealing he's not yet expelled. Namura agrees to become her disciple to get her stamp. At the airport, he surprises Rukuru and asks about her plans. She replies she'll do what she wants and he can too. She kisses him, claiming he's only hers, and asks him to tell the 5 swords to stay away from him. Later, Namura meets Rei to leave. Mary arrives, annoyed Rei didn't wait for her. She reveals the principal was just playing and changed her decision about expelling him. Rei draws her sword, telling him he must submit to them or leave the academy. He refuses and continues walking to the academy entrance, where everyone welcomes him back. And that's how the first season of this anime ends. If you've reached this part of the video, let me tell you that you've been one of the few people to make it this far. So comment the word Harem in the comments. Remember to subscribe to not miss any videos. With that said, see you in the next video.